My Fishing Adventure, the star of this creative book. My Fishing Adventure by Karen M. Hefty. This book was created especially for Rick Miller, to our favorite fishermen, the Tremaines, Christmas, 1989. Rick Miller, age 39, was peacefully reclining in his bed, browsing through his newest fishing catalog and thinking about the annual fishing contest in Chautauqua Lake, New York. I sure wish I could enter, Rick said to himself as he flipped through the pages. Rick turned the page and saw Bobber Bear in the catalog. Boy, I wish I was fishing like Bobber Bear. Then I would be able to fish any time I wanted, thought Rick, as he gently nodded off to sleep. Rick began to dream, and in his dream he was magically transformed into Bobber Bear. What was even more amazing was the fact that Ricky was also transformed into another fishing bear. Ricky told Rick to get his fishing rod because they were going to enter the fishing rodeo. Rick was very excited as they began packing for their fishing trip. Along with sandwiches and fruit, they packed plenty of water to drink. Ricky brought a tent. They decided to go to the Pro Bass shop to get sinkers, flies, hooks, floats, and anything else they might need for the fishing contest. Ricky also looked at the new boats, outdoor gear, and the other fishing equipment. Rick was fascinated by the colossal 30,000-gallon saltwater aquarium they found, stocked full of trophy-sized fish of many types. There was even a real person in the tank, hand-feeding the fish. At the fish camp, Rick and Ricky set up the tent for the night. With the boat in the water, they took their places and Ricky started the motor. "Look out, fish, here we come," yelled Rick and Ricky at the same time. First they cruised up the river so Ricky could find just the right fishing spot. Rick was starting to get impatient when Ricky said, "This is the place." Immediately Rick began looking for fish. He wished Mom Danelle and Kim could be here with him. Rick watched Ricky get one fishing pole ready. Next, Ricky grabbed a spinner. Then Ricky helped Rick get his very own fishing rod ready. Rick was going to try a plastic worm first. Rick had trouble throwing out his fishing line. Several times it caught nothing other than branches of some nearby trees. Finally, he learned how to cast his artificial bait to the right spot. The first time Rick reeled in his line slowly. He was very disappointed that the fish were not biting. After 3 more casts, Rick began to understand that you do not catch a fish every single time you throw out your line. Soon Rick was catching quite a few fish, but none of them big enough to win a trophy. With the noon sun directly overhead, Ricky declared that it must be time for lunch. Rick was too excited to stop fishing. Ricky reeled in the line, but Rick left his line out and set his rod by his seat. While he was eating lunch, Rick heard a noise next to him. There was a quick jerk, and his pole almost fell into the water. Ricky quickly grabbed the pole, and the fish that Rick hooked was so big that it began pulling the boat. The sandwiches flew overboard as Ricky, the boat, and the fish headed down the river through the rapids. Ricky looked so funny trying to keep one hand on the boat and the other on the hat. Rick would have chuckled if he were not so afraid of losing the fish. As the boat raced toward Chautauqua Lake, New York, the other fishing contestants could not get out of the way fast enough. Fishing poles were snapping, lines were breaking, and Mom Danelle and Kim and his other friends were cheering from the banks. Rick was ready to land the fish and try to win the trophy. The fish was the biggest ever caught in Chautauqua Lake, New York, the loudspeaker hailed. The winner of this year's fishing contest is Rick Miller. Rick. Wake up, Rick, said Ricky while shaking Rick out of his dream. I just entered us in the big fishing contest. Let's go now or we'll be late. Rick grinned from ear to ear. Maybe this dream would come true after all. The end.